Well, for more now on the topic, we're joined by Morris Davis, a former prosecutor for the U.S. government. Edward Snowden held a top-secret clearance, like yourself.
Correct.
Morris Davis. Now, what does it take to get a top-secret clearance?
Well, it requires submitting a detailed application and having the investigator come out and talk to your friends and neighbors and relatives, and it's a fairly cumbersome process to get the clearance.
I'm wondering to what extent, getting a clearance like this and the criteria used to get the clearance has been diluted to some extent, because a major portion of intelligence gathering by the U.S. government has now been outsourced.
Right, yeah. He was working for Booz Allen, a defense contractor who has made a ton of money in the post 9/11 era. And a lot of folks like Snowden, which is amazing. He's a high school dropout with a GED that was making a six-figure salary working for a contractor who contracts to the government to outsource a lot of our intelligence efforts.
And had access to, from what we see, a lot of documents that were sensitive, that were classified.
Well, clearly, and it's questionable, and it's a case similar to Bradley Manning, where there's a question of, does a person at that level really need that kind of broad access to be able to do this kind of what appears to be potentially significant damage?
Right, here's a question. I've been hearing a lot about this in recent days. In your view, has Mr. Snowden compromised U.S. national security interests?
At this point, I don't see evidence that he has, other than creating an embarrassment. I mean, it's unfortunate. President Obama promised a new era of transparency in government, and all that we've learned during his administration has been through leaks like this. And he said he welcomes the debate on the surveillance programs, but we wouldn't be having the debate but for a person that he now wants to prosecute for having exposed the program. So it's really a real irony.
Right, because if you hear what some in government are saying, we've heard James Clapper, the head of national intelligence, saying this as well, that U.S. national security interests have been compromised. That would mean that until last week, the guys who want to throw bombs around, the guys who want to bring planes down, the guys who want to bomb American citizens, etc., were unaware that the U.S. government was monitoring them.
Well, I don't think there's anything that Snowden revealed that people didn't suspect to begin with. I think what it did, it confirmed the suspicions. And I think a lot of people are surprised by the scope, that not just the bad guys. I mean, they think if it's, them and not us, they're okay with it. But this notion that the government is collecting every phone call ever made from every phone number, I think has really shocked a lot of people.
Do you think Mr. Snowden will be prosecuted?
I think if he is captured and brought back to the U.S., yes, he will be prosecuted severely. It remains to be seen whether he'll be brought back to America. I guess there would be some poetic justice. The U.S. welcomed in a Chinese dissident, so I guess there would be some poetic justice in China welcoming in.
What would the charges be?
Well, right now, clearly he signed the same security paperwork that I did, that Bradley Manning did, that others did. Clearly, it's a violation of the security agreements that he signed. But if the government, as they typically do, tries to overcharge and overreach, as they have with Bradley Manning, they'll go for espionage or some other greater type offense.
Okay, we just got a few seconds, and I just want to run something by you. Could this case go all the way up to the Supreme Court? Because we haven't heard the Supreme Court justices pronounce on this particular issue of secrecy yet.
Yeah, you're right.
Could it get up there, and finally we will get a judgment on it?
It certainly could, but again, to get from here to the Supreme Court, you and I will be much older by the time that the case gets there, but it certainly has that potential.
Okay, so Morris Davis, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
Okay.